Greetings all. In today's video, I demonstrate how we can automate filling out a Word template with data read from a CSV file. So let me show you exactly what we will go over in today's video. So I have this Word template that is basically just a certificate template downloaded from Word. In it, you will see key text placement for the first name, last name, and the date field labeled I dated. Our mission at hand is to take the values from this CSV file and fill it in the template with these values. Now, we will also utilize some PowerShell functions in this video, which I will explain later on. Now I'm going to run the Power Automate flow and we will see these documents get created. So if we open up some of these, you will see our target text in the template has been replaced with the values from our CSV. So follow along to see how this was accomplished. Okay, so how did we do this with Power Automate? Let's go ahead and delete these generated files and start from the beginning. Note, also these files are named according to the user as well. Let's first go over these scripts. The unzip script actually unzips the Word document. It takes in a Word file as a parameter and performs this unzip function. It extracts to this populate Word docx folder all the associated XML files. The extracted XML will always have this name and be in this location. This is the XML file we will edit with our data and resave it. Now, our zip script will then take that folder and zip it back to a Word document with this function here. You can pause it here and study this code. It takes in a name parameter, which is basically just a name that you want the zipped up document to be called, and zips it back to the location with the new name. So now let's set up the Power Automate flow. So go ahead and open up a new flow. Our first order of business is to read our CSV file and loop over these values and write it to the XML file that our script is going to extract from the template. So let's put our two document in variables and reference them by variable name. So we have our CSV and template in variables. Okay, great. So we have to call our unzip script. It will actually take our template in as a parameter. If we open it up right quick, You can see the parameter is referenced by our template variable. So let's call our PowerShell script. And reference the script with the template parameter with our variable template and save that. Okay. Now let's run this to see what happens. So we called our script referencing the template document, and it created this folder with the document split out by XML content. If we go in there, we will see our target XML file, which is the file we will edit. This contains all the text from the Word document. So it read our file and extracted its contents into this folder. Now, if we look at the output of the script, it actually references the file in question in which we will be editing. Great. But if you notice, there are two lines. This will cause some headaches, so let's go ahead and call the trim action to remove blank lines on it. Set that trim on our PowerShell output, and let's rename this variable to target XML. This will be the location of the XML file we will be editing. So we now have our target XML file. Let's read it and pass it to a variable. Search for the read for XML from file action and pass it to our target XML. Leave everything else as default. So we now have our XML content within the XML document variable. Now, let's read our CSV and store the contents in a variable using the read from CSV file action. Okay, great. Let's delete this folder and then run it again. And if we check our XML document, we can see our XML data. Okay, perfect. And we can check our CSV table. We can see our data here. Great. So we can now cycle through each element. So let's do a for each loop on our CSV table. And if we look at our template file again, we will replace first name, last name, and iDated with our new values. Okay, so, well, our first row is the title, and we want to skip the first row. So we can do that by simply creating a new variable and incrementing it with each iteration. And we will only action it when our variable is not 0. So let's create an if statement. And if our row variable is not equal to 0, then we extract the values. And don't forget to add your increment at the end of the loop. So this row 0 will be skipped and the rest will be actioned. Now we will set our variables. First name is our current item, 0 index. Last name is our current item, 1 index. And date is our current item, 2 index. Okay, great. We will have our values. Now we need to insert these values into our XML document data. So if we run this, we can see our variable updates on the left with the correct data. Now we will take each variable and replace the first name, last name, and iDated values in our XML document with these variables. So let's add replace text action, and we will parse our XML document. Text to find will be first name, and replace that with our first name variable. Rename the produce variable with replace first. So now let's replicate for last name. We won't be looking at XML document anymore because now the updated data is in replaced first. So now last name will be replaced with our last name variable and rename the produce variable. And repeat again for date. We now update this to replaced last. Text defined is iDated and replace with our variable date and update the produce variable. Okay. We have all our variables writing to our XML document and updating it. So our replace date variable will now have all our replace text in it. So we need to write that to our original XML document location, which we reference in our target XML variable. We will write it with our replace date variable and leave the remaining defaults. Now that we have our XML data updated with our values, we can now zip it back up into a Word document. But before we do that, let's get the details in which we will name this newly generated document. Let's create a new variable that includes the path of where the document will be saved. Then we will name it first name dot last name and add a dot docx at the end. This will be the full path and name of the new document we create. Now, let's call our PowerShell script and pass it this new name. Now, because we need to run this numerous times before we overwrite our XML document, we need a copy of it prior to us updating it. So let's create a new variable called original and pass it the contents of our XML document before we update it. So now our original will always contain our first copy prior to our updates. So after we run our script and generate our document, let's update the XML document with the original contents for us to update again with further iterations. We write our original variable to our target XML. So we set our CSV and template variables. Then we run our script that turns our docx file into XML. Then we read that XML and store it. We store our CSV data. We make a copy of our XML document. We iterate over our CSV data and replace our defined data with extracted variables. We run our second script, which then zips up our folder back into a docx file, and we copy the original contents back into our XML. And once that's done, let's delete our folder that the script creates, the populate word docx folder. So if we manually delete this and run our flow, let's see what happens. We have our files being created. And if we open them up, we see they are being updated successfully. Great. And they all correspond to our CSV file content. And that's it, folks. This is one way to automate filling in Word documents with data read from a CSV file using Power Automate. Hopefully you found this video helpful. As always, please like and subscribe to the channel. And if you have any more complex automation requests, please email us at help@aipsolutions.tech. This has been brought to you by AIP Solutions.